Hello, hi, and welcome to this episode of the Mandy Meyer Podcast. As per usual, this is the podcast where we chat all about you getting a little bit fitter, getting a little bit stronger, getting a little bit healthier, losing a little bit of fat in the process, and adding some enjoyment to the plan whilst you proceed forward as well. To every single one of you that always take the time to rate and review this podcast, to share it with your friends, family, colleagues, your dogs, your uncles, your aunts, your sisters, whoever you're sharing it with, or, just sending it via a WhatsApp message to that person. From the bottom of my heart, just thank you so much. I always say a podcast is not a podcast without the listeners. And that's why I always say thank you, because I can sit and talk into this microphone over and over and over again. But if no one shows up to listen to what I'm saying, is it really a podcast? And I also know that everyone's days are hectic, it's chaotic. So for you to take the time out of your busy day to listen to these podcasts or to watch these podcasts, it really does mean the world to me. So again, thank you very much. On that note, let's get into today's episode of the podcast. I want to chat to you today about the dark side of social media. Now, I know you're probably sitting there thinking, oh, that's a horrendous topic. I'm not going to learn anything from it. And what's the point of actually listening to or watching this episode of the podcast? But I'm going to dive deep into some of my own personal experience on social media, how it's had, I want to say, a little bit of a negative, for the lack of better words, effect on my mindset as well as my mental health, and how I manage it and how I've set boundaries up for myself when it does come to social media. I'm also going to touch in, on things such as certain posts that have been made on social media, certain influencers on social media. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to mention people's names. I'm just speaking in general here, and what to look out for so that you can protect your mental health and that you can move forward without comparing yourself or your expedition, your health and fat loss expedition, or just your general life with someone that you don't know on social media. And I do believe that this is a very important topic of conversation, because if you look at it, if you look at your average screen time on your phone, I would love to know. I mean, it's a rhetorical question. You don't need to message me and tell me what your screen time is. But again, it's something that I, for myself personally, am trying to decrease on average on a weekly basis. And I'm doing everything in my power to do that, because there has to be certain boundaries, or else, like I say, it can have a negative effect on the way that you perceive certain things, whether it's on your health and fat loss expedition or whether it's in your general life. And as per normal, I'll start off with a little bit of a story regarding my own experience on social media. So prior to February 2020, I had quite a small following. And by small following on Instagram, I want to say it was less than 20,000 followers. Okay, fast forward till where we are now, and I think I'm sitting on about 150,000 followers just on Instagram. Now, most people will get super excited when they see their social media accounts growing, or they will, I don't know, maybe just think that the sun shines out of their arse. Who knows? I don't know. I don't know what other people do. For myself, it was quite a nerve-wracking time, and I think the reality of it has only hit recently. And the reason for that is in February 2020, when my mom was diagnosed with cancer, that is actually when my social media accounts just started growing. Like, I put in all the hard work for years and years, several years leading up to the day where it just started growing, and it just started growing. And I remember that day I was sitting with my mom in the oncologist's department, and we were sitting and we were waiting to find out what the staging was of my mom's cancer. And I remember my mom went to the bathroom, and I was like, and I started scrolling through my phone, and I saw a DM coming through on my Instagram. And immediately, I mean, of course, I could see that my Instagram account was growing. I could see that, but it wasn't my main priority at that point. Of course, my mom and my family were. So I see this DM coming through, and I open the DM, and all of a sudden it's this negative comment, and I can't remember exactly what this person was saying to me, but it was something in the lines of, I can't believe you're making up so much shit, you're so fake, or something like that. And in that moment, it hit me. I'm like, with my account growing, this is what I'm potentially going to have to be dealing with on a daily basis, on a regular basis. And in that moment in time, I honestly could not care any less about that comment that I got, because I was sitting at the oncology department with my mom waiting to find out more results. So my social media at that point meant absolutely, I don't want to say it meant absolutely nothing to me, but my priority at that moment was not the growth on my social media accounts. And like I said, my focus was elsewhere, but I wasn't oblivious to the fact that my accounts were growing. It just didn't excite me as much as what maybe it could have, I think, if that's even the right way of putting it, because for me, it was like, okay, cool, my social media accounts are growing, but I've got other things that I need to focus on right now, other things that are taking up my mental space. And I didn't fully focus on the growth of my social media accounts. And I didn't fully comprehend what was happening until we found out my mom was cancer-free. And the moment we found out that she was cancer-free, obviously a massive, massive blessing, and one of the happiest days of my life. The biggest thing for me though was, shit, what just happened over the last several months, over the last year? Not with my mom, that I was working through, I am still working through that currently, but with my social media accounts, I was like, and all of a sudden it just hit me, after those several months, and I think I was pushing it to one side, Of course I could see the growth, and of course I could see the negative comments that was coming with a lot of things. But like I said, it wasn't something I was going to fixate on, because at that moment in time, I was there staying by my mom and dad, helping out, taking my mom for her radiation, helping her out with her treatment, making sure the house is a little bit clean, whatever else goes with it. So like I said, all of a sudden, when there wasn't that worry, all of a sudden now it hit me like a shit ton of bricks. This Instagram account that grew, this TikTok account that grew, this Facebook account that grew. And I'm like, wow, now I actually need to deal with this. And that's actually when I started realizing the magnitude of what was happening on my social media accounts. And it is that point where I had to start setting boundaries, okay? Because it would have really, really, like I said, just taken up so much mental space if I have to go through every single comment, and if I have to, negative comments that is, or if I have to only focus on the negative DMs, right? So again, for me, I had to set so many boundaries over the last several months. So since my mom was in remission, since I think it was August last year, September last year, like I said to you, I was like, what is happening? And from that day, I realized that, it is playing quite a big role within my mental health, because every time you open up an app, or every time you get a notification and you open up a DM, for me, there's always that fear of, someone's either going to call me a piece of shit, someone's either going to comment something negatively on my body, someone's either going to call me out about not adding salt to my food. And again, it's not all negative. There's so much positive. Just yesterday, I got the most amazing message from a guy thanking me for all the information that I put out there, and he's managed to lose 46 kilograms. So there is so much good as well. But as humans, we tend to focus on the negative. Now, again, this actually has nothing to do with the episode and with what I want to sort of chat to you about. But that's just an intro of it, is to say that if you don't set boundaries when it comes to social media, it can play a massive role in your mental health, right? And I think that is a very big thing that all of us have to take into account when we are surrounded by social media accounts. You have to be very pedantic about who you're following online. You have to be very pedantic about maybe unfollowing certain people online, especially if there are certain accounts that trigger you. Maybe, for example, there's certain food accounts that trigger you. So maybe you see food that's been posted and all of a sudden that leads to certain cravings. You're going to have to relook that and be like, okay, do I really need to be following that account? And, can I potentially unfollow them? And the one thing that stood out for me, and I'm talking from the perspective of someone who runs an online business. So I'm not a consumer. I'll be very honest. I'm not a consumer of social media. I spend very little time doom scrolling. It's part of my boundaries that I've set for myself. So I post and then I interact with people that are commenting on my posts, and then I shut down social media for the day. Whereas a lot of you out there are consumers of social media. So you're consuming my content, you're consuming other people's content, and that's where we have to be very careful about the content that we do consume. Because I noticed how, people put me on a pedestal and they all of a sudden form this idea around who I am and what I do. And that's only by me sharing some videos that I make in my kitchen. I'm very pedantic about not sharing of my private life, any of my private life or personal life on social media, and I have my reasoning for that. I created the accounts. Those around me didn't sign up for that shit, right? The last thing I need for them in their lives is to get negativity towards them as well. But again, I noticed that I can, post a couple of things and I will say that, I have chocolate as part of the plan, or I have a couple of beers and sometimes I'll have some muffins, or I'm okay with having a burger and chips. Most of my meals are very balanced, but then I'll get people walking up to me in the shop, looking in my basket and saying, why do you have that chocolate in your basket? You telling us we're meant to live healthy. The other day, someone stopped me at a coffee shop and said, oh, I hope you're not ordering the muffins. And I'm like, okay, cool. What kind of pedestal have you put me on where you now think that I'm this kind of person where I'm actually your every single day normal kind of person, right? And I think therein lies my message today is when you are consuming accounts or social media from certain accounts, I want you to realize what you're consuming is not always a reality. Now, I'm not saying my content isn't reality. I try and keep it as real and relatable as possible. Like, I'm not bullshitting anyone. I'll tell you, I have beers. You see me sitting in a pub on a Saturday, you come wave to me, you say, hello, I hope you're enjoying your beer. You don't come to me and say, hey, you're not meant to be drinking that beer. All right, okay. No one's ever done that, if I'm very honest. It's just looking in my trolley, looking in my basket, telling me not to eat muffins. Anyway, we digress. So when you are consuming content, there's a couple of things that I want you to look out for, okay? Number one, transformation pictures. You don't know what those people have done to get to that weight loss that has taken place within their lives. You don't know if they're using certain medications for that weight loss to have taken place. You don't know if they're using recreational drugs, okay? That could also be something. You don't know what their health status is like, and you don't know what levels of restriction they have gone to. So it's a very slippery slope when you do start looking at certain people's transformation pictures, because then a lot of the times you can compare yourself and your transformation to someone else online. And I love sharing my transformation pictures, but I always try and make sure that I got a very, I want to say, long story about it to make everyone fully aware of exactly how I did it, how long it took, the struggles that I've faced, just so that people know, okay, it's not going to be easy. It's not just magically going to fall off, etc., etc. So yes, you want to look at drawing inspiration from people's transformation pictures, but just please make sure that you are aware of a little bit of their background story, for example. Okay, and I think that is fundamental because, like I said, you don't know what people are doing to lose that weight. I mean, we don't even know if Photoshop has been used on those pictures. You don't know those people, right? So it can be quite a dangerous place when you start looking at other people's social media pictures of their transformation, okay? The next thing is these what I eat in a day posts. I think they can be quite harmful in the sort of way of, are these people really eating that in a day, right? Because I get so many requests every single day for people to, they ask me to post what I eat in a day posts. And I'm like, well, I don't necessarily stick to eating the same thing for 7 days a week. So I'll have my oats for breakfast, I'll have my nutrient-dense lunch, and I'll have my nutrient-dense dinner. And some days I'll eat the same meal for 3 days. And some days on a weekend, I might have way too many processed carbs, or carbs for that matter. And, that's me being real. That's me telling you that, you know what, I can post this perfect picture of, oh, this is what I eat in a day. Maybe I'm not even eating that in a day, right? So again, I want you to really, really pay attention to these things and actually ask the questions. Like, are these people really eating exactly that every single day? Okay. And I'm not saying that they aren't, but the possibility is that maybe they aren't. Okay. Because again, we don't know them. You don't live with them. You don't know what they are doing. You don't know what they are eating. What I do know, as someone who has social media presence, especially in the health and fitness and fat loss industry, what I eat in a day posts are super engaging. And that is what a lot of people are after. They are after that engagement. So if I want to increase my followers even more tomorrow, which, you know what, I'm quite hesitant to do because, I've just been through all of that. But, I can post so many pictures of what I eat in a day posts. I can talk nonsense to you guys and say, ooh, this is exactly what I ate for fat loss. But again, it would be to create engagement, and that's not what I want to do, So we always need to look into that. But again, like I said, some of them can be quite inspirational when it comes to you looking for meal inspiration. But also, don't now go and base your entire meal plan on someone else's meal plan because they said, this is what I eat every single day and this is why I look like I do because I eat like that. And I think that messaging needs to stop. Now, if we look at another thing that really, really gets to me is everyone that shares their daily routines. Okay, so, I wake up at 4:30 in the morning and then I do my yoga. That's meditation, I think, Mandy. Then I do whatever and then I fluff over here and I fluff over there and I do my morning journaling and that sets me up for the most successful day. Those people are lying. I'm telling you now, maybe they're not. But again, it's an engaging post because I get so many people to ask me, they come and they ask me like, please make a post of what you do during the day. I'm like, okay, first of all, I'll wake up groggy like any normal person. Most of the time I'm hitting the snooze button because I'm like, fuck, I don't really want to be waking up at 5 o'clock in the morning or 5:30 in the morning. Secondly, I live my day absolutely like every single one of you. Okay, so I'm working 12 to 14 hours a day. I'm eating the same meals 2-3 times the week because it's just easier for me to do that in advance. I don't have this magical sort of, I do this, I do that, and this is what makes me, super motivated to go out and do more. And I think this is a big thing that is portrayed online is I wake up at 5 a.m. every single morning and then I do this and then I do that and then I've got so much free time and honestly, I just feel that it's creating false expectations for you because one thing you need to remember about social media, okay, is most of the people that you are following online, let's say, for example, it is in the health, fitness and fat loss niche online. If those are the accounts that you are following, majority of the accounts that you are following are people that do it for a living. Like they get paid to be in the gym. They get paid to maintain their physique, so maybe that they can be on the cover of a magazine. Maybe they're a bodybuilder, maybe they're competing in physique shows. That's where they make their money, so they need to maintain that figure, they need to maintain their meals, all of that year round. Now, yeah, you are sitting scrolling through these things, through their accounts, and you're like, oh, look at Sally from that gym. She's got the perfect, quote unquote, body, and oh, I wish I could look like her. Meantime, that is what Sally gets paid to do, right? That is her priority. She's in the gym most of the day. Either she's training clients or she's training herself. She's probably got a meal prep coach. She's probably got a physique coach. She's probably got a personal trainer as well. And again, now you're sitting there comparing yourself to someone like that. Whereas, Sue, you and me, we every single day, normal people that have jobs that keep us exceptionally busy. And your priority is not necessarily going to be in the gym 7 days a week for 5 hours a day. Another thing, like I said, is a lot of the times these social media accounts within the industry will be posting every single morsel of food that they are eating, every single calorie down to the last 0.105% of a calorie. And then I always question it. I'm like, okay, that's good, because we need to have a certain level of education around calories, because it definitely does help with fat loss, or it gives you more sort of, say, structure with your meals throughout the day. But also, at what point do we draw the line and say, okay, maybe this is becoming a little bit obsessive now, So again, it's having a look at it from that perspective and being, okay, now you comparing yourself to someone else, and there could potentially be, and I say this with a lot of love and, just compassion as well. You don't know if the person that you are following is actually struggling with an underlying eating disorder, for example. Maybe they're struggling with their body image, for example. But every single post that you see online is how amazing they feel, or how amazing it is to track every single calorie. And that's why we always need to question and say, who are we following online? Do they make us feel better, or do they make us feel worse? Do they trigger certain things, or do the accounts trigger certain things, like maybe cravings for certain foods? Or do you feel that you are comparing yourself to certain people online and it's making you feel bad about yourself? Is it affecting your mental health? And if you've answered yes to at least one of those questions, you're going to need to start setting boundaries when it comes to your social media accounts. Because I can tell you now, like for me, setting the boundaries over the last several months with my social media accounts has really, really played a massive role in moving forward with creating content. Because like I said, for me, I was like, oh, am I really going to have to deal with all of this that came from a couple of viral videos and an insane growth on social media? And I was like, I am going to have to deal with it because it is my business. But how can I deal with it in a better way, in a way that it doesn't affect me negatively, especially my mental health? And I'll be honest, like there was even times where I caught myself comparing myself to other content creators online, not even actually content creators, but coaches. And they're all like driving around in these fancy cars and saying, oh, I just bought this one a car, or I just bought a new house. And I'm like, look at my small little apartment. I don't even have a car. Like I walk, or I take, anyone in Cape Town will know, the My City bus. And then I felt myself comparing myself to these people. And I'm like, what am I doing wrong that I can't, be in that position that they are? And then I had to remind myself that I have no idea what they're doing in the background. I don't know what paid advertising they are doing. I don't know anything about that. And I'm like, if it continues triggering me, I'm going to have to unfollow them, right? And like I said, that's all part of setting boundaries when it comes to social media, because I'll be honest with you, and I read a study or I read a stat or something like this the other day about the effects that social media is having on our mental health. And I can totally vouch for that, because I know a lot of comparison is taking place on social media. I know a lot of people feel bad when they see certain things online. And I know that especially within the health, fitness, and fat loss part of social media, it can be quite a dark space because of all the comparing that takes place. And like I said, just because you see something online, it doesn't mean that it is legit, and it doesn't mean that it is real. And also, if you see someone online like myself, for example, look at me throwing this in here. If you see someone like myself online, for example, I just want to remind you that, for me, as an example, I'm like just a normal person like you. Okay, I work long hours every single day. I live quite a boring life. Of course, I've got things that I enjoy in my life, right? Obviously, I do. But for some unknown reason, people think like I live this amazing lifestyle, and I just, and they put you on this pedestal. And I think that gives me such anxiety, because I'm not. I walk to the shop in my tracksuit pants and, socks that show underneath the tracksuit pants, and old clothes, and, just random shit like that. And again, like I say, people create this idea around people on social media, creators, for example, or influencers, for example. And a lot of the times it can be quite, I want to say, negative or detrimental. Now, I'm not saying that is always the case. Obviously, there's accounts out there that are amazing. There's accounts out there that bring me so much joy. There's accounts out there that I have learned from, not only in the health and fat loss sort of side of things, but also in the business side of things. And those are the accounts that I want to follow because they make me feel good. I'm learning from them. But any account that makes me feel bad, or any person that comes with their negative nonsense in my DMs, I'm like an instant block, okay? Sometimes I'll tune them back just depending how I'm feeling on that day. But again, I've always got to remind myself that the weight of the rock only matters if you pick the rock up, meaning that other people's opinion, especially if they don't know me, is pretty pointless. But this is not about me. This is about you guys setting boundaries on your social media accounts. So in conclusion, what I will say is, if you feel, even if it's just a 10%, that you feel that it is having a negative effect on you, whether it's you comparing yourself to someone else online, or whether it's you, like I said, comparing transformation photos, or whether it's looking at someone's account or someone's body and saying, oh, I wish I had that, or whether it's looking at food accounts and then you're like, oh, that's triggered that craving, then at some point you are going to have to relook the usage of your social media. At the end of the day, you need to remember it's you that curates your social media feeds. So whatever you're searching for, the algorithm is going to pick up on that. And whether it's on Instagram, they'll push more of that onto your explore page. Whether it's on TikTok, they're going to push more of what you've been searching for onto your For You page. And that's how the algorithm works. So, what I've started doing is I've started sometimes, like just looking for dog videos, and then I see these cute little dogs running around and it puts a smile on my face, and then I look at one or two videos, I'm like, cool, I've got those positive endorphins now, and then, and that works for me. So again, remember, you are the curator of your social media feed. Who you follow, what you search for, that all plays a massive role. So again, if you are struggling with, like I said, a little bit of comparison on social media, or you feel like it is having a detrimental effect on your mental health, for example, or just the way that you're actioning things and your intentions and everything else every single day, just have a look at your social media, who you're following, and what your explore page looks like. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you guys like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who really doesn't want to scare you off social media, but just wants to help you put some boundaries in place. Mandy.